Text and its context. How important is the context of a text? The idea of studying texts in context has become a major new emphasis in contemporary literary studies. Text and its context explores the idea of context and the way they affect texts. It's time to learn this topic. Hi there, learners. This is Renette. Welcome to another lesson. In our previous lesson, we talked about 21st century forms and the traditional literary genres. To review, these are the literary genres and forms. If you haven't yet watched that video, please click the link above or you can check it in our playlist section. Today, we will focus on two words and they are text and context. When your teacher asks you to analyze the deeper meaning of a certain piece, that's not easy. You need to ensure that you understood the context of the text. Without a clear understanding of the context of the text, you cannot fully comprehend the views and values of the author nor the overall meaning of the text. That's why you need to study deeply the context of a text. But first, let's define what a text is. A text is the written part of the story, what happens, what is stated on the page. On the other hand, a context, like all words involving the root text, context originate from the idea of weaving together, as in textile. The New Oxford Dictionary, published in 1998, defines context as the circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood and assessed. In other words, instead of looking at small bits of a text in predictable ways, exploring context involves much bigger issues. The circumstances that contribute both to its production by the author and to its reception by the reader. Context refers to what goes with the text rather than what is in it, meaning it shapes the text. Let's take a look at this example. When Mr. Bilbo Baggins of Bag End announced that he would shortly be celebrating his 11th birthday with a party of special magnificence, there was much talk and excitement in Hobbiton. There are a few statements here that are plain text. Bilbo Baggins is turning 111 and he will celebrate his birthday with a great party. That event gets the community he lives in into a buzz. Meaning, we don't have to interpret these statements. These are facts that remain the same from whatever angle we look at them. Now, if we analyze the context, in the example, we may have questions such as what and where is Hobbiton? Is Bag End part of it? And if it is, what is it? Who is Bilbo Baggins? And maybe more importantly, is he going to be the main character of this story? The context will answer all these questions. We could say that while the text is the bare bones, the context is the meat. Is the meat on them? Still, it's the text that makes the story. To dig deeper, other writers even added one term, and that is the subcontext of a text. But we will not discuss that here. Now, after knowing the context, we will identify the different types of contexts. To help you remember the different types of context, just imagine yourself eating this. Chips. Let's crack the chips. CHIPS as an acronym stands for C. Cultural context, historical context, ideological context, personal, and sociological context. Let's discuss them one by one. Later, I will give you an example of all these types of contexts. First is cultural context. Culture refers to a particular way of life involving religion, race, and nationality, as well as things like food, dress, code, and manners. Furthermore, culture can relate to art, music, writing, and literature itself. Cultural context is especially important to note if the author is attempting to make a comment on an aspect of culture or the clash of two cultures. Next is historical context is the broader cultural environment of a topic or piece, which includes how time affects the importance of something. It also includes politics, culture, religion, economics, and societal norms. The third is ideological context. Ideology refers to the systems of beliefs and ideas that underpin our attitudes and behavior. Such ideology may be valued by society as a whole or be the basis of conflict. Ideology is a context that is in many ways invisible. This is because our own is largely internalized and normalized, and we act accordingly to our assumptions and social norms. The next is personal context. Other authors refer this as author's context versus reader's context. To say that authors write from their own experiences is an exaggeration, but their lives always influence their work in some way. Reader's context is what is the reader's connection about the text, and that is why we have this literary theory, reader's response theory, because the reader's background knowledge is also important in deconstructing a text. And the last one is social context. Social context is how the people surrounding something affect and interpret something. Social context is concerned with people rather than culture in general. Social context changes depending on who is involved. Social class, religious affiliation, and gender are a few factors that affect how people view something and build social context. When interpreting this type of context, the intended audience of a text or created work is an essential element that changes how the viewer should look at an item. Now, let's try one example of the story. I knew many of you have read or watched the famous trilogy story of J.R.R. Tolkien. So, let's make this as a sample analysis. This is not the exact analysis, but I'm just giving you the idea on how to analyze using the different types of context. So, we have here, let's start from the cultural context. This is the analysis of the cultural context. This is the historical context. And here's the ideological context. The personal context, the author's context, and the social context. Well, this is how we deconstruct a text. What can you say about our sample analysis? As part of your personal context, I want to hear your thoughts as a reader. You may add more information in the comment section below. Happy learning! See you